Tumbbad was released in 2018 and takes place in 1918 and is about the titular village Tumbbad, which has become the greedy obsession of Vinayak, the main character, who spent his childhood there. And this is actually the very first review I've done on my channel at the request of a commenter, and I appreciate the recommendation because this movie did surprise me. The movie is written and directed by Rahi Anil Barv, which I apologize if I got that name wrong, and the movie actually has a pretty interesting backstory on how it was made. He originally wrote the first draft for the script in 1997 and then didn't really get anywhere until 2008, and a production company actually picked it up to be made at the time and then pulled out at the last second, and they weren't able to get the movie made. And then he was able to finally start filming the movie in 2012, but it also wasn't able to be finished until 2015, and a big reason for that is because the movie didn't have a huge budget, and one thing that Barv wanted to do is make the rain seem realistic and have it be raining throughout the entire movie. So he had to wait for 4 different monsoons to hit the area they were filming over the course of 3 years, and he would film every scene that needed the rain during that time. So obviously this movie was a big passion project for him, and he used the resources he could to get it made. And I think the amount of effort that he put into making this movie is admirable, because it's a lot of work that he put into it. So I think that should be appreciated regardless of the movie's end quality. But the movie follows Vinayak over the course of 30 or so years of his life. And the story is split up into 3 chapters. The first chapter is about Vinayak as a child, when he, his brother, and his mom took care of this mysterious old woman that they called their grandmother because she had knowledge about vast wealth that nobody else had. The movie is steeped in Indian folklore and mythology. A local legend prevails through centuries about Hastar, the first son of the goddess of creation who tried to steal the world's wealth and food. After he stole the wealth, he was cursed by the other gods to remain in his mother's womb for all time and to never have his name known by humans. However, when someone builds a shrine to him, the local village becomes cursed with never-ending rain. So Vinayak becomes obsessed with this legend because Hastar has endless wealth. So the movie becomes an allegory for greed and the consequences of it. And I think that this is where the movie does work best. I think the symbolism and metaphors throughout are really well done. Barv has said that the chapters also represent India itself and how the people progressed through that time. So there's a lot of that put into the meaning of this movie. However, my biggest issue with the writing for the movie is the character work. I don't think any of the characters are very fleshed out or interesting. Vinayak gets the most attention, of course, since he's the main character, but he never really moves into being a fully fleshed out character, and then his family members are pretty one-dimensional too. So that's probably my biggest issue with this movie, is just that the characters weren't as interesting as I think they should have been for this story, because I did not find myself really caring for them. And I think that the story would have been stronger if I did care more about the actual characters. But honestly, this is really my only issue with the movie, because otherwise I think all the other aspects of it worked pretty well. I think that the story itself is interesting, and the horror that they use to elevate the story is done fairly well too. The cinematography is also really well done. Most of the movie has natural lighting that is used, along with just having some really stunning shots throughout. The makeup and the creature design is also really impressive. There are a couple moments of CGI with some of the creatures that is kind of noticeably bad, but the creature design is so good that you do kind of ignore the noticeable CGI. However, the actual makeup and everything that is done for everything else is really, really great. I was really surprised by it. This movie is legitimately unsettling. There's one sequence in particular that got really under my skin. A good part of the movie sees Vinayak going to this abandoned mansion, and he's digging for something. He's looking for something. And the movie doesn't really unveil what happens until one of his friends follows him to that mansion. So this is well into about an hour into the movie, and when his friend tries to figure out what's going on, the reveal of what's happening, the unveiling of the story and what Vinayak is up to, is legitimately terrifying. It feels like something that is out of a nightmare. The cinematography, along with the production and set design, is used so well because it makes this sequence feel very claustrophobic, and it makes it feel mysterious and just scary in general. You feel really uncomfortable watching this sequence, and I thought that it was really, really creative in its set design especially. So a lot of the horror in this movie does end up working pretty well because a lot of it is legitimately unnerving. I thought that the acting was also pretty solid across the board. I liked Sahum Shah as Vinayak in the lead role. He was really interesting to watch. I do think that this is a really solid movie. I think that it has a really, really strong start and a really strong reveal partway through the movie, but it also tries to tell a legitimately interesting story with horror elements in it. I think it's well directed, and I like the different approach to the horror genre that it takes. And I did have some problems with the flat characters and some of the pacing of the movie because some parts of it are noticeably less interesting than other parts. But like I said at the beginning, this movie did surprise me. I think it's definitely worth the watch if you are a horror fan, if you're looking for something a little bit different in horror, especially a lot of the kind of generic American horror that we get and everything that's kind of dumped in like January, February and stuff like that, kind of the go-to bad horror movies. This is actually a legitimately interesting find. It's available on Prime Video, and I would recommend giving it a watch. But I'm going to be rating Tumbbad an 8.0 out of 10. A really solid horror movie. I would recommend going to watch it. If you guys have seen it, what do you think about it? Let me know, and I'll be back with another video.